Hello again, everybody, and welcome to Two Man Game here on Claves Online. I'm Bob Ramsey. That is my partner, Matt Rocchio. Glad to see everybody in between games of the NBA Finals, and we are here to talk NBA. But a quick note, Billiken basketball, assistant coach Ray Giacoletti retired today, and a bit of a shock, and I'm very excited for Ray. He's going to split time the way it should be between Florida and St. Louis in his retirement. And I'm so excited for him to leave the game on his terms and go out leaving the Billiken program better than when he got here. Just a marvelous human being, a tremendous head coach in his time at Utah and Eastern Washington, an awesome head coach for Travis Ford, and a good friend to all of us who got to associate with him every day. So I just wanted to open the show with congrats to Ray, who gets to retire. I think that's awesome.
Absolutely, and getting to talk to Ray and interview him a couple times this season, that was really one of the awesome experiences of kind of starting to really dip my toe into SLU basketball a lot more. He was an incredible guy to kind of pick his brain. I mean, so much history, and he's seen so much about the college basketball landscape. I mean, talk about where he came into college basketball and then where he's leaving it, where, starting where he was, 20, 30 years ago, and then now, being a guy who's making trips to Europe to do scouting, for SLU, and how much things have changed. Just an incredible career, really happy for him, and, maybe down the line we can pick his brain.
I think we should.
I think we definitely
absolutely should. All right, let's get to the business at hand. The NBA Finals, the Celtics win a convincing victory, even though they tried to give it away in the third quarter. We'll get to that in a moment. But Rocc, as we have mentioned frequently, I had a streak of getting every game wrong from the beginning of the playoffs until game 2.
Finally, yeah, you broke the streak, and it was quite the game to break it with.
And I got game 3 right. Here's what's important about that is that the script, if you will, for yesterday's game is the script that I thought would be the template or script for the series. That is exactly the way I thought the Celtics needed to play to win.
Yeah, I mean,
it might be the only game of the series they do that, but that's what I expected to see.
Yeah, and I think the big thing that Rammer's talking about is 47 to 30 rebounds, 22 offensive rebounds to, I think, 11. I think it was 22 second chance points to 11 as well, and then a dominating 30 points in the paint from 3 Celtics, which outscored I think it was 28 points in the paint for the entire Warriors team. So everything Rammer's talking about, old school, rebounding, defense, scoring in the paint at the rim, that's how the Celtics won that game. You're absolutely right, exactly how you drew it up.
Okay, so there's 1 out of maybe 7. Okay.
We'll
but
take
that's
it.
what I thought would happen. Now let me get to the third quarter. And as good as Al Horford has been for the Celtics this season and in the postseason, and he's been tremendous, and he played well yesterday. However, he almost lost the game in the third quarter. And it goes back to something that I want to give you credit for from the beginning, and that is the way the Celtics have to guard screens against the Warriors. And Horford was the poster child of how not to do it. It's like, I don't know if it was fatigue, mental freakouts, and probably a combination of everything. And he, in several possessions in a row, he laid off the screener and allowed open shots, and they were threes. And it's his fault, by the way, that the Warriors went on that 7.1 possession run. That's all on Horford.
Yeah, just not stepping up on threes. It seems inexplicable. It's one of those things where it's so obvious to you when you're watching the game. You just don't know what's going through his head. Honestly, I think those were fatigue moments for Al Horford. If you want to watch somebody who's having I don't know what I'm doing out here right now moments, watch Jordan Poole when he plays defense. I'm just being honest on that one. Sorry. He's flailing. He's having a tough time. But I think that's just Horford having just some the legs are a little tired right now. But again, you give Curry that space. You don't step up, and it's incredible what he does. But also, you have to give some credit to the Warriors because there were a lot of bad moments in the third where they let shooters get way too open off easy pick and roll and screen and roll action. But there was also some incredible movement by the Warriors where they would
Yeah.
use the dribble handoff action they kept using, and for the most part it was not working, and the Celtics were doing a good job of blowing up that dribble handoff action in the first half, and it really started to get going in the third. I actually thought outside of the third, he didn't have a very good game. I thought Otto Porter was incredible in the third quarter, and I thought he really
That big shot he hit
cutting that big shot he hit. The outlet he was is just a guy who could facilitate those dribble handoffs a little bit better than an Andrew Wiggins, while also giving them solid defense and shooting at kind of the 4 spot. They were playing super small, the Warriors were. I think that's why we saw such a stark win from the Celtics in rebounding and those kind of things. But I mean, they did almost let it slip away. You have to give credit to the Celtics for building a big enough lead that it ended up not mattering. And then something I want to get into later, them closing it out in the fourth, obviously. But you're right. That's a big thing to circle, because there were a lot of moments in the game where you felt like the third quarter was going to slip away from the Celtics again, and it's been unbelievable how the Warriors have been able to outscore them, and it was just the same way over and over again. So I guess the bright spot for the Warriors is that they're continuing to do that, and Steph Curry right now just continues to have statistically one of the best finals and control-wise the best finals of his career so far, I would say. So that's a good thing for the Warriors. But then obviously if you're the Celtics, the fact that you're able to stave it off, stop it, and then completely shut it down early in the fourth to the point where you're just walking away with a win, that's obviously, you're up 2-1 now. You got to run with that. But there's some problems there in the third that if it extrapolates, if the Warriors get going earlier in the first half, it's just a completely different game.
So let's talk about Game 3 before we go into it, because they all saw what both teams saw, what we saw. So how will they make adjustments? But let's talk more about the game and some of the individuals in it. I thought Klay Thompson was very good, but another guy that we focused on who had maybe his worst game of the postseason is Draymond Green. I said, how do you play Draymond Green? The Celtics showed you.
Yeah, that was legit. I mean, that was offensive liability territory. I mean, for sure, liability. The Warriors were worse off every time the ball switched over to an offensive possession and Draymond Green was on the floor. And really some of the only criticisms I wrote down about the Celtics throughout the entire game was when they failed to continue the spacing that was such a big part of their game and opened up so much of the paint and allowed them to do what they were able to do. That spacing was so crucial. And anytime they failed in that spacing defensively, I was getting mad, because it's just there's no reason to give Draymond Green any credit as a shooter right now. And there were too many possessions. Some of the biggest shots that the Warriors made in the second, third, and fourth to kind of keep the game steady in the second and fourth and then make it interesting in the third were when Tatum or somebody would inexplicably play Draymond Green straight up, and it would open up a passing lane that he would make the pass because he's still Draymond Green. But, I mean, if you sagged off him, it completely stymied the Warriors' offense, and that was such an obvious switch, and they finally went to it. And the Warriors, maybe for the first time ever in this run, and I'm talking about a 6-7 year run at this point, for the first time ever, the Warriors did not have a counter for one of their best players kind of being taken out of the game, and that was kind of shocking, but it was a huge part of it.
And let me go back. For those who didn't see the episode, I was saying, how do you play Draymond Green? If you try and match his madness, his physical madness, he's got you. If you go passive against him, he's got you again. So it's that real narrow, fine line how to play him. And the Celtics did it just right. They were physical with him, but they didn't go over the top like he wants you to. Mm-hmm. They didn't they didn't disengage from him. They did it just exactly right, and he became the player that was frustrated and ultimately fouled out of the game.
Yeah, and he wasn't nearly as aggressive with some of his screens, and I think that was probably him just realizing that in a way game
Marked man.
he was a marked man coming out of the conversations. He wasn't going to get away with that kind of stuff, and that was a big part. There was just some of the shots weren't as open as they were in previous games. So yeah, Draymond Green was extremely disappointing. He's just got to be the big Warriors' biggest problem in that game, and whenever the Celtics would start kind of losing their lead, it was their biggest problem as well, playing passive. Early in the
Yeah.
game, at any point when Jayson Tatum was playing passive, bad things were going on with the Celtics. Anytime he was aggressive, bang, you saw what happened. The passive play of guys like Klay Thompson, of Jordan, of Poole, of Draymond Green, that's what hampered the Warriors in such a big way. That was so huge, and Draymond Green was kind of the unfortunate, negative catalyst in that way.
And then look at the other two scorers for Boston. They needed to have big days, and they did. And I thought that was so critical because Tatum, he can be a distributor. He can be the guy, sometimes even basically the only guy. But when you've got three guys, Smart was had such a good game in my view. I don't you and
Yep.
I haven't talked about him.
Oh yeah.
And Brown and
I mean, Brown was huge.
what
Yeah.
they were able to do to spread out the Warriors, acknowledge terrific defense and spread them out. I just thought that those as a threesome, we talked Tatum number one, he is, but as a threesome, they complemented each other so well.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a huge part of it. Like I said, spacing was such a huge part of that game. And the real interesting fact was, so you had Jayson Tatum going for 13 assists in game one. Then they sag off and they say, we're gonna make you beat us in game two. He does that. Obviously, it doesn't really work out for them, but he scores much more. This was an interesting game because I thought they saw some of the criticisms. They saw some of the similar things I've seen, which is sometimes Tatum wasn't good enough as a distributor and a playmaker when you forced the ball when he had the ball in his hands in crucial moments. Well, the Warriors decided yesterday we're going to hedge, every time we switch off him and they attack Curry and they got so many possessions one-on-one Tatum versus Curry. But every time they did that, the Warriors said how we're going to attack this is we're going to double hard with an Andrew Wiggins and we're going to force Tatum to beat us with a good pass. And Tatum said, all right, fine. I'm going to go out here
Right?
and throw this shit around like I'm Larry Bird. And that's exactly what he did. That pass he made coming down the right wing over, I think it was Wiggins to Peyton Pritchard for that three-pointer, that is one of the craziest passes I've seen. It's weird. You don't notice how crazy it is, but the guy's in his hip pocket, and he makes it over his head across the defense,
Yeah.
backwards a little bit. That is in full speed. By the way, dipping his shoulder. That's why the guy's in his hip because he's dipping his shoulder on a drive. That is a crazy pass for Jayson Tatum to make in that moment, and he made it perfectly. And it was a huge three for the Celtics in the second to kind of push them. I think it took their lead from like 8 to 11, kind of pushed them back, give them a little bit more juice. His playmaking was huge, and the Warriors invited it every time they attacked Curry. And again, I want to give the Celtics a lot of credit for consistently finding ways to put Curry in front of Jayson Tatum through
Yeah.
switches. And at the same time, I want to give the Warriors some credit because they kept trying to hide it and they kept trying to compensate. They were throwing doubles at him, and he kept passing out of it. And that leads me to my second big point on Jayson Tatum before we move on to talking about game four, which was Jayson Tatum's overall game and kind of moving from the third into the fourth when they needed him to be a killer. Because like I said, right out of the gate, kind of backtracking a little bit, right out of the gate, the very first possession, they come down. Jayson Tatum, they run a pick and roll with Smart as the screener. He gets Curry one-on-one, but immediately, I mean, before the screen even really breaks up, but it was going to be Curry. He throws it immediately back to Smart, who then kicks it to Jaylen Brown for an open three. Good possession in and of itself, fine. But in my head, I'm thinking, you were just about to have Stephen Curry one-on-one in the first possession of the game. What are you doing, Jayson? Let's go. This is exactly what we don't need. And then by the second, he's getting a little bit more aggressive. They're constantly attacking Curry. They're doubling. He's passing. And then we get to the fourth, and this is where things got interesting. So 11:30 left in the fourth. We haven't had any scoring. It is 93-89 after that Warriors third quarter run. It is a 4-point lead for the Warriors. Right off the bat, Jayson Tatum gets Andrew Wiggins. They don't get a chance to hunt Curry. I think he was on the bench, I think, to start the fourth. They don't get a chance to hunt Curry. So it's one-on-one with Andrew Wiggins. Draws the foul, knocks down both free throws. That's 2 points, and we're at a 6-point lead. Okay, so over the next few possessions, he assists a Marcus Smart three. In fairness, it was a bailout three. That was a huge bank. It was that bank three that,
Yeah.
if we talk about it, I mean, we could talk about how if that doesn't go in, it's a 95-91 game and it's completely different and everything like that. But nonetheless, he gets the assist on the bank three because he hustled, got a rebound, got a position, threw it out to, hustled, got the ball on this crazy rebound and got it to Smart three-pointer. All right. Now we're talking about, okay, so four of the next 6 possessions are Jayson Tatum one-on-ones where it's Andrew Wiggins, they don't get to hunt Curry. And 3 out of 4 of those possessions, he knocks on a 2, and 2 out of those 4, he completely one-on-one cooks Andrew Wiggins. One of them's right there on the right wing. He dribbles long. Some people, it looks like it might be an over dribble, but he sets up Wiggins perfectly. As soon as Wiggins shifts his weight to to Tatum's offhand, Tatum switches, breaks him down, beats him to the cup, 2 points. And then another possession just completely murders Wiggins on a one-on-one. That's a matchup that people were talking about. Is Wiggins going to be able to handle Tatum? Tatum proved that he can't in crucial moments. So, to wrap it up, from 93-89, a 4-point lead at 11:30, we go to 4:52. It is now 110-96, 4-point lead, a 14-point lead. It is game over. The Celtics are on a 17-7 run. Jayson Tatum in that 17-7 run goes 3 of 5 from the field, 2 of 2 from the charity stripe for 8 points, gets a rebound and 2 assists, both of them for Marcus Smart three-pointers. He is responsible and is part of 14 of those 17 points to close out the game, again, including 3 of 4 from below the arc. All 3 of them being one-on-ones where he just takes one defender and beats them completely to the paint, to the cup, and finishes. That is championship legacy shit right there in a Game 3 for Jayson Tatum. He stepped up. He got aggressive. He proved that this is his team, and he can lead them to a championship. That was so impressive by him, and I think it got glossed over a little because it happened so early in the fourth. But the game was over at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. And it proves what we in St. Louis were hoping for, that he's a star and a leader.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So all those things matter. So as we look to game 4, also in Boston, let's jump from that point you were making. So Tatum, they're trying to get on switches, looking to get Curry to guard him. He doesn't mind if Wiggins is guarding him. What are the Warriors supposed to do?
At this point, I think their best chance is to, put Wiggins on him. Show him a lot of physicality with guys like Otto Porter. Continue to do whatever you can to not let him isolate Steph Curry. Continue to send him those doubles and continue to force him to beat you by being a passer. I mean, if Jayson Tatum beats you because he gets 23 and 12 every night, that's one of those situations where you got to throw up your hands. It was kind of like when the Cavaliers beat the Warriors, and it was like, okay, if LeBron James is going to go nuclear, and Kyrie Irving is going to do his thing, and then Tristan Thompson's also going to go like 20 and 20 because he's getting every rebound in the world. All right, fine, we're going to lose that. It's when you have to give up certain things. So I think it's going to be doubling, hedging hard. The Warriors don't really blitz on screens, but maybe they throw that out because we haven't seen it.
But I know they're 2 different kinds of players, but can they go after Tatum like they did Doncic?
Oh, no, I don't think so at all. That's the thing about Jayson Tatum. He doesn't have those kind of same problems, and he can play physical. We saw him do it against Kevin Durant. He's big enough and he's fast enough to play with quicker guys, and he's not going to get outworked there. Defensively, offensively, inside, outside. This is why. I talked about how him bringing the ball up and initiating offense is literally the only part of his game from being an MVP profile that he hasn't shown, and now he's showing it. And
Yeah,
so this is an MVP caliber player. You don't shut those guys down. You slow them down, and that's why again now you're getting to the point where you're going to start having to choose between Jayson Tatum. Is it 30 points, 7 and 7, or is it 23 and 12? And if he
yeah.
gets the 12, if he gets the 12 because Marcus Smart and Jaylen Brown and Derek White are hitting threes, all right, fine.
Well, and I think that's what you got to do. As I look at it, I think they have to, and I'd like to see the Celtics win, but they're both great teams, and I like both teams, by the way. But how consistently can Brown and Smart continue to get after you? Maybe the answer is every game, big boy, keep leaving me open. Maybe,
Yeah.
but that's a gamble I think in game 4 the Warriors may need to take. That we're going to slow down Tatum, we're going to overplay him, and if he finds open guys and we don't rotate and they make shots, well, we're in big trouble.
I mean that's listen, and it's not like the Celtics don't have similar problems. They haven't slowed down Steph Curry at all.
No,
But the exact thing. Klay Thompson was talking about it in the media availability today. Somebody asked him, do you guys have to give Curry some help if he's hurt? And he was like, we have to give Steph Curry help if he's not hurt. He's doing it all right now. We're not doing enough for him. That was Klay Thompson saying that. And that we haven't even really talked about the fact that Steph's hurt now. And so he's been carrying the Warriors, and that's another big part of this. Obviously, Tatum and what these guys are doing is incredible, but Draymond, like I said, is a liability on offense. Poole is not contributing the same level of offensive spark off the bench that he was in the regular season. Steph Curry's doing a lot, but Klay Thompson finally gets it going last night, but he's not the same aggressive player. There's a lot of he should have had a better game last night if it's 2 years ago Klay Thompson, because the Celtics by kind of getting beaten up by Curry, were giving him a lot of looks that he was passing out of that I was frankly shocked by, and I think that's just him coming back from injury. There's nothing wrong with that, but I think it's to be expected. So more so than that's the Celtics plan, but I think that's also kind of that's the Warriors playing with the Celtics. I think that's also the Celtics playing with the Warriors, because they're not slowing down Curry. And right now the best chance is to continue to force the ball into Poole's hands, continue to completely ignore Draymond Green and force other people to beat them in that way, because
but the one thing they can do is do a better job on those screens.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
If they that's the one thing that, even though they won and they won handily, that's the one thing they can do to take it one more level up. Don't have those mental lapses.
Yeah, and that's where the Warriors are jumping back and getting their games back. Getting the game back. It's why they were able to stay in the game in the second quarter. It's why they almost got the game back in the third. And again, I talked about that moment. In Game 3, it's 95-91 if that prayer bank shot from Smart doesn't fall down. It's 95-91 going the other way for the Warriors. And at that point, Stephen Curry jacks a three. Now it's 95-94. It's a completely different ball game. So you can't look at the final score and say to yourself that the Celtics won this game handily. Yeah, Jayson Tatum put his head on the jugular and finished it, but the game was right there. And anytime you have Stephen Curry, that matters. Now the injury is going to be a huge part, and that's going to be a huge thing going forward. By the way, I talked about the first play in Game 3 a while ago. That was also a play where not a lot of contact, and Jayson Tatum came down holding his shoulder. Yep. So that's clearly not 100% either. So there's kind of some underlying potential narratives there that could pop out. I just think that while they've won their 2 games in impressive fashion, in no way am I really leaning that hard towards the Celtics. They have home field advantage. They've taken it away. They're up 2-1. They still have another game in Boston. That obviously puts them in a great position, and the injury to Curry hurts them. But at the same time, there are a lot of little things, again, on the perimeters, on the margins that we talked about in the last game, where a bounce here goes this way, a bounce here goes that way, and all of a sudden, this is a 2-point game, and the Warriors are completely in it. The final score in none of these 3 games has denoted how close these games have been at times.
Injury is different from illness, but I think a scenario for the Warriors winning Game 4 is Steph Curry having a Michael Jordan game. It's not the flu, it's the leg, but it's the kind of thing where he has the ability to go off no matter
I like
what you
that.
do. And
Yeah.
that is a way that could be, he can have a Michael Jordan game basically on, we don't know how hurt he is, but, you know, with one good leg and one perhaps compromised at some level, but that could be one of those legacy type performances. That would be a way for the Warriors to win in game 4.
Yeah, I mean it's gonna have to be that or Poole, Thompson, Draymond. These guys are gonna have to step up. I think guys like Kevon Looney. I think they're giving you exactly what you want to see. From their position. Andrew Wiggins I think Andrew Wiggins actually needs to lock in a little bit. He needs to be the
Yeah.
defender that he's supposed to be. He getting beat by Tatum like that. He had some great possessions. Particularly he was locking up Klay Thompson. Not Klay Thompson. Particularly, he was locking up Jaylen Brown in pretty good fashion. Jaylen Brown was eating on a lot of other guys, but he was doing better against Jaylen Brown. He was doing really good at times, just completely closing out parts of the Celtics' secondary cuts and things like that. But then one-on-one against guys like Tatum, he was chopped liver, and he can't be that guy. So these periphery guys on the Warriors, injury or not to Curry, they have to step up, or this isn't a series. Just period.
If Steve Kerr called you tonight, said, "Hey, we're flying you up to Boston. You got to help us figure out this game plan, Rocc," which is, I think, a possibility. Um, would you go to Draymond Green and say, "You got to give us more on offense. You got to give us at least a dozen," or are you asking him to do something that's not who he is anymore?
I think you gotta tell him I need more from you on offense. Now I would say I don't need that. I don't need you to be shooting, but I need you to continue to orchestrate this offense in a way where your passing is still deadly. Too many times he was immediately facilitating the first pass. He'd catch it, immediately sling it, get into a dirty area, and make them move off you. Everything the Warriors were doing well is when they get the Celtics a little bit moving off their rotation. And nothing Draymond's doing right now in his passing is doing that for the most part. Only when they stay tight on him does anything happen, because other than that, they're playing. The Warriors are playing 4-on-5. So I would say you have a part of your game that works, and we have the shooters that can create that space. Utilize it.
Yeah.
But that would be my biggest thing to him. And then I would also say, you have to. I don't know if you got to scream at Jordan Poole, or hell, you got to tell me to take Jordan Poole out of the game. You have to become the guy who's going to get in the Hall of Fame because of his defense. That's who he is. I've talked about it multiple times. The greatest defensive signal caller the NBA has seen in 20 years. He's got to do that, because when they force turnovers from the Celtics, which they are prone to, first of all, the one game they've won, they made the Celtics turn the ball over 8 more times. The 2 games they have lost the turnover battle. It's only been by 1 or 2 turnovers, but that's another part where I was talking about the margins of game 3 that don't tell you in the final score. You can force turnovers. So I need more from him on defense as well. He hasn't been the same defensive player in a lot of these possessions. Same thing with a guy like Wiggins. He locks in certain moments when he's coming off ball and he's a weak side guy, or he's blocking out a screener. But those one-on-one moments, he's not stepping up in the same way. So I need more from him offensively, but I need more from the guy who he is. Make my defense the number 2 defense that it was in the regular season, and get me 17 to 20 more turnovers so we can get out and run where we absolutely dominate the Celtics. Transition game in this series is the biggest difference, other than maybe rebounding. And one's in the Celtics' favor with rebounding, and transitions in the favor of the Warriors by a wide margin. And that's why turnovers can be such a huge part of it. The Celtics have a bad game turning the ball over. The Warriors are winning that one.
So we've laid out all the possible scenarios. Who wins game 4?
I'm going to say the Warriors snap back. I just really think, even with the injury to Curry, and I think that'll really be the deciding factor, I think this is a game of adjustments, and I think what we've seen is two teams who continue to make the correct adjustments. The Celtics did it within game 1, and the Warriors did it before game 2. Celtics did it after game 2, before game 3. I think we're going to see the exact same thing. I think they're going to find a way to attack. I think they're going to find a way to attack the screen and roll with a even 75% Curry to the point where it just breaks Boston at certain points, and we finally see that third quarter play at times in the first and second, and it's enough for the Warriors to win.
I think for that to happen, I think Curry feeds him 40 plus, and I think maybe he will.
Yeah, I think that's live. I like your idea of a what was it?
Jordan-esque.
Yeah, Jordan. Why am my basketball memory is failing me right now?
Like the flu game against the Jazz.
No, yeah, flu game against the Jazz. But who's the Nick who comes out? Willis Reed. It's kind of like it's a Reed Jordan hybrid moment. That's what I'm going to call it. It's a Reed Jordan hybrid because he comes out on the bad tires, if you will, like Willis Reed, but he plays the full game and shows the hell out like Jordan did.
And there you go.
And also, there's no scurrilous, Mormons to blame for the game.
Wow, that came out of nowhere.
Is it the flu game or is it the poison pizza game? Let's just be 100% honest. And it's Utah, so I'm just playing demographics at that point.
Wow, demographics. That's Matt Rocc.
I'm kidding, of course. It was obviously the flu. Why would Jordan be dumb enough to order a pizza and then be the only person who eats it? No, it was the flu game, obviously. Much respect to Jazz fans.
I like the poison idea better.
Yeah, I thought you would.
That's Matt Rocc. When we get together next week, we'll know what happens in game 4. No weekend games, meaning Saturday, Sunday. And so we'll see what happens as they get ready they'll be going back to Golden State. So Rocc, have a great weekend. We'll see how game 4 goes, and talk to you next week.
Sounds good, Rammer.
That's Matt Rocc. I'm Bob Ramsey. It's the two-man game on Claibs Online.
From our roots in St. Louis, Royal Banks of Missouri is branching out to continue serving you with our locations in St. Charles, Jerseyville, Granite City, and now in Hannibal, Center, and New London. Royal Banks of Missouri, the community bank in your community.
At St. Louis Acura, new inventory is arriving daily, both new and pre-owned. Our buying team adds a higher level of personalized service that others can't match. We sell over 100 pre-owned vehicles monthly, and many of these are matched by our buying teams in Missouri and Illinois. As new Acura production ramps up, be one of the lucky ones to try the newest Type S models now available. Performance has never been so stylish and comfortable. St. Louis Acura remains committed to becoming better than ever for you.